Welcome to The Scaries, brought to you by RaiseHER Co. I'm Sky.
And I'm Talitha. We are proudly broadcasting from Treaty 4 territory and in the homeland of the Métis. In each episode, we tackle alarming, inconceivable, questionable, shocking, and scary statistics relating to, impacting, and intervening with the lives of women and girls worldwide.
You'll hear the scary truth, take away tools and tips, and learn about what you can do about it. The Scaries is an opportunity to raise awareness, share resources, and use our power as women and supporters of women to make real change. As always, we'd like to note that the opinions and views expressed on this podcast are solely our own, so please do take those with a grain of salt. And some of what we share may be triggering, so please do listen with caution.
As straight, cisgender, white, able-bodied settler women, we are aware of the privilege that we have, and we want to use this platform to spread awareness about the scary reality that women from around the world face in different life situations.
Why?
Because sometimes nothing is scarier than being a woman. Welcome back.
Welcome. Have you ever looked at your group chat or your friend group or, who's ever in your contacts, your LinkedIn, your social media feed and thought, everyone kind of looks like me, talks like me, thinks like me, probably shops at the same store as I do?
Yeah, no, very much so.
Yeah.
I've done that actually. It's happened a couple times. And everyone's got like the exact same therapist recommendations or the same generational trauma types. It's all kind of the same.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no one asking new questions.
Totally. And I mean, it's cozy, it's comfy,
Yeah.
it's easy, until it's not. Like, is that really pushing you? Are you really growing? What are you learning? Are we getting into this like groupthink mentality and not really broadening horizons? And then suddenly we're 10 years deep into comfort and wondering why we've still stuck in the same patterns.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like your circle is a sweater that used to be cute and oversized and like slouchy and like worn in. And now it's just, itchy and holding you back.
Exactly. So today we are talking about what it looks like to intentionally stretch our circles. We're talking about diversity of those circles, decolonization of those circles, equity of those circles, accessibility, and of course, inclusion, the full mouthful. And why that's more than just a workshop that you have to be voluntold to attend.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now, because let's be honest, these values of diversity, decolonization, equity, inclusivity, accessibility, all of it, they're under attack from school boards to workplaces to entire government departments. These real efforts like actual legislation trying to erase or defund anything that helps make spaces more inclusive or representational.
It's super sad. And it's not just an American problem. We're seeing this all over. It's a human problem. And it's not even necessarily a problem. This is a leadership opportunity where we have the opportunity to make spaces more innovative and more diverse and more profitable at the end of the day, if you're looking at it from that side. Yeah. So as the world gets more connected and more diverse, the question isn't if we make spaces for that, it's how fast. Let's get this done and whether we do it with integrity or not.
And the thing is that doing this work on a personal level can actually feel a little bit weird, maybe a little uncomfortable. Like, are we allowed to have our own little DIY inclusion policy? Is it performative if we make a checklist? Is it awkward if we mess up the wording? The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Also, so what? The point isn't to be perfect. Nobody has all the answers. We're learning as we go. This is all new territory.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's uncharted territory. So as long as we're making some moves, even if they're itty bitty, it's going to be better than where we're at.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
We have to move forward. And we need a community that reflects the actual world. And that includes our friendship groups. And that includes our network groups and whatever groups you're in. Not just the filtered version of you.
Yeah, exactly. Not what we see on social media. And it's not just a vibe shift. It's really an act of resistance. Creating diverse, welcoming spaces isn't just a nice to have. It's a stand against the systems trying to keep everything the same.
So that's what today's episode is all about. What it means to choose growth, even when it's messy, and what it looks like to go beyond the buzzwords into real relational change.
Plus, we've got a friend with us. We have Credell Simeon with us sharing some powerful truths and tips that'll leave you thinking, okay, I needed to hear that.
So if you've ever felt like you're stuck between caring deeply and not knowing where to start, this one's for you and me and her.
And me.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. So we've talked about the why, the tension, the fear, the performative landmines rather, but let's talk about the benefits, because building a diverse circle isn't just about those vibes only. As I said, it's strategy, it's impact, it's scientifically backed glow up energy.
So let's start with the career T.
Yeah.
According to a 2019 Harvard Business Review article, women in Canada who have networks that include both peers and high status contacts are 2.5 times more likely to land a high ranking job. That's not corporate fluff. That's the algorithm saying strong, diverse networks equal more promotions. And when I say like peers and high status, this is different from you. Doesn't always mean people of different color and different, sexual orientation or lived experience. It means people also have different levels of you. So there's those on your level, your peers, and those who may be seen as high status.
Yes.
So that's important too.
Yes, very good point. And it's not just about who is in your corner professionally either. Let's talk about mentorship. So studies at Stanford and MIT Sloan show that diverse mentorship networks help women and folks from underrepresented groups stick around longer, feel more successful, and actually move forward. It's not mentorship for show. It's actually mentorship that works.
Totally. And let's not forget creativity, because guess what doesn't happen in a room full of people who've all read the same 5 leadership books? Breakthrough ideas. A 2018 McKinsey report showed that teams with gender diversity, not just a token seat, but real inclusion, had measurably better innovation outcomes. The TLDR, diversity isn't nice. It's necessary for ideas that land.
Totally. And it goes deeper than your Slack channel. Let's talk health. A 2010 study by the United Nations confirmed that strong, diverse social networks, what researchers call social capital, quote unquote, actually protect your health, like biologically. Lower stress, faster healing, improved immune response. Community is literally medicinal.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And this isn't new. Across cultures, across history, women have coped with stress not by going solo, but by leaning into community. Actually, I think we heard something recently where like a number one indicator of people who have lived the longest years, I don't know where I heard this, was strong connections. They lived, and not just lived forever, but had happy, like joyful lives.
Right.
For people who had strong connections and really a really tight knit community. So there you go. A study in a journal of health and social behavior showed that women consistently turn to their networks for support, guidance, and survival, which is why women live longer than men.
That's right.
Whether it's
We lean
childcare
on each
hacks,
other.
exactly. Whether it's childcare hacks, crisis navigation, or someone to just say, "You're not crazy. This is our superpower."
Yeah.
You got it.
But not all networking is created equal. That random name tag energy, so uncomfortable. Research out of Northwestern University found that women thrive when their networks are both wide, so think diverse experiences and roles, but also deep, meaning a core of trusted confidants who help navigate the politics, the prejudices, the pitfalls of their careers.
And even Canada's own data agrees. The Gender Results Framework from Statistics Canada shows that when we build equity into our relationships, peer, cultural, intergenerational, we boost everything from economic participation to leadership representation to overall well-being.
So yeah, having a diverse circle, it's not a checkbox. It's your emotional immune system. It's your career GPS, your creative rocket fuel. It's what helps us feel like we belong and not just fit in. And the data backs it up. More promotions, better retention, stronger mental and physical health, and way less burnout from pretending to be somebody that you're not.
Basically, the new flex isn't who you know. It's how diverse your circle is and how deep you're willing to go with those people.
So now that our brains are buzzing and maybe our hearts a little too, we get to hear from someone who's been there, intentionally built a rich, diverse network, and watched the transformation unfold.
Credell Simeon, let's bring her in. Welcome, Credell. We are thrilled to have you. So let me tell you about Credell. Credell Simeon is a Caribbean-born creative raised on the island of Grenada and now rooted in Saskatchewan for over a decade. Her journey weaves together data science, leadership, and creative entrepreneurship. Credell is passionate about building authentic connections, empowering women, and nurturing community well-being. With a genuine love for people, she uses her voice and work to inspire, uplift, and create spaces where diverse audiences feel seen and celebrated. So welcome, Credell. Super happy to have you on the pod.
Thank you. Very happy to be here as well.
Awesome. Okay. So we're going to kick things off with some, as we always do, our rapid fire questions just to get things kind of loose and comfy. Okay. Talitha, do you want to start us off?
They never end up being very
Never. They're pretty
easy.
deep.
But okay, Credell, let's start off with what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received or that sticks with you?
So one piece of advice that I received from my friend Carrie, she's an executive coach. She mentioned it's all about how you show up and how you show up in the world. And since I have learned that statement and really reflected upon it, I have decided to focus on that and really show up authentically, make a bold statement, and inspire others on my journey.
I love that.
You.
Make a bold statement. Yes.
And how you show up is, there's so many pieces to that, right? Like, and how you're perceived, right, by different people. You may think you show up a certain way, but you may show up differently. So it's so interesting. That's a really intense, like deep, intertwined kind of an answer. So really great. Awesome. Okay. If you could grant one gift to all women, what would it be?
Courage.
Ooh, I like that.
Ooh, one just mic drop. Love it.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Okay. Well, and then, following courage, what is your scary? What's the thing that keeps you awake at night? What's the thing that keeps you not worried, but worried? What keeps you scared?
So actually that has evolved over time.
Okay.
So right now I have a genuine fear of not finding my perfect soulmate.
Okay.
And also a generally fear of not being able to do all the things that I want to do before my life ends. So that keeps me up at night. I have a big bucket list, big dream girl, and I really want to punch and make a statement in the world. So that has right now kept me up. Previously, before it was all about my mother. We was really focused on her and all of that. But now that she's more heavenly, I'm able to really focus on myself, on my own journey.
That's so true, though. That kind of thing you worry about for sure changes.
Yeah.
Like probably for me,
evolves,
like annually.
I was like, annually, daily.
Okay. So we're going to get into the nitty gritty now and get into the questions. These are practical questions because Credell has a very diverse network and she knows how to make those deep connections with everyone and anyone. So let's get into it. So you described the moment you decided to step into unfamiliar spaces as a pivotal turning point for you. Can you walk us through all of that? And how did you realize your usual circles were limiting your growth?
So diversity for me has been an evolving process. To be honest, I grew up in the Caribbean. And the Caribbean, for those of you who don't know about it, is actually a diverse place. It has a diverse culture because of our history. So we have European descendants, African and East Indian descendants. So it's a multi-pot. That's what we call it. So diversity has always been part of my culture. So I've always been around circles that have been diverse when it comes to diversity in ways of thinking and culturally. So when I came to Regina 12 years ago, I came to the University of Regina, and the University of Regina is a diverse place. I met lots of people from across the world, gained friendships through that. One of the things in terms of diversity that I first recognized then was in the area of study that I chose. So I chose computer science, and turns out it's really male dominated. So gender diversity hasn't always been there for me as part of my education. It's really been, really male dominated spaces. There were few girls in the class. I was one of them. So that was my first change in how I saw diversity. So, and then I entered the workplace, and it was similar because I chose to work in technology. I love it. But again, it's not necessarily as gender diverse as other spaces. So when I decided to step out of my comfort zone, the first thing that I really wanted to do was really to connect to more women. So that was like, I wanted to learn more about them. Part of it is because I too had a evolving relationship with women. I have a twin sister, so we have a tight bond. And to me, I've spent a lot of time fostering that relationship. But then she decided to move back to the Caribbean. So there I was filling that void as well. And I started to do a lot of inward reflection. And I thought, what about trying to connect with women? And I was like, well, that would take effort because I don't know. At that time, I was apprehensive because I was thinking like, maybe I don't know as much about women as I should. I know my twin sister very well, but does that generalize to all women? Like, what do they like? What they know? I had some friends back home, but again, I always kept my women circles small. So this was big for me, huge, being able to put myself out there and starting to make those connections with women focus groups like the Regina Women's Network, like WESC. So it was those initial steps. It was a lot of anxiety at first, but then I found like-minded people and I was really curious. Curiosity is what you need when you need to put yourself out there. So I was curious and I really authentically believed that I could learn from their experiences. So that is what really performed me to speak to one woman and then another woman. And then it became like, okay, this got easier over time.
I find that we had already chatted about this, but in Regina specifically, which is just a smaller community, and so many folks have, like Skylar and I are an example of this, is that we've known each other since we were little. And so we're still friends and all that kind of thing. And so it's hard to expand or even get into networks because people are just like comfortable and status quo and, don't want to expand.
Yet.
So I think, and a common fear that we then hear is you don't want to show up as like the token one. You don't want to show up in a space that maybe you feel like you quote unquote don't belong. So how do you approach someone new or maybe someone different than yourself in terms of cultural or, how they think or whatever it is? How do you approach someone new without feeling like that? Like you're feeling like it's a token space, feeling tokenized?
Yes, that's a good question. To me, organization is about when there is a small group of people, and there is like a cherry picked kind of situation, right? But to me, tokenization is the opposite of authenticity. And that is what I focus on, authentic connections. So I always look at connections with the lens of curiosity. So I meet people and I interestingly and wholeheartedly want to hear their story. I want to listen. One of the things I've been working on as a leader is listening. I was not a good listener before. I could be honest. I talk a lot. I don't listen until I had my team at work. And I was like, I really got to listen more. So to me, networking was a great opportunity for me to even build that skill more, that listening skill, and really put myself out there to listen to their experiences and then being able to ask questions and really chat, have a conversation.
Right.
And that is where I find I build those connections because I have photographic memory and also I also have a memory. I remember what you say. Something resonates with me. So most times I'm able to turn that back into like some kind of follow-up. So when I see you, I was like, oh, well, how did that vacation go? Because I remember you said that you were going on vacation. So all of that helps as well. So to me, tokenization is you can counteract it with just being authentic. And then also it's about perception, right? What you perceive about yourself and what you think the world perceives about you. So I've spent a lot of time understanding my own self and my own uniqueness. And from that, I use that to build authentic connections because I allow myself to become vulnerable and share what's unique about me, and hope that somebody, and trust the process too, that people will share back in an authentic way as well.
Absolutely. I think that when somebody comes into a space and is just absolutely themselves, you can feel that. You can feel that energy.
Yes.
Yeah. And then it feels safe for other people to be themselves.
Right. And I think the point you made about listening is like, if you're being tokenized, typically you're not being listened to, right? You might be able to listen to others, but if they are just having you there to have you there and not actually take what you have to say into account and use that in whatever way, that's the thing, right? So that's a really good point. So you mentioned before your industry being in science and data and all of that really was not, that was a male dominated industry. So there's a lot of those, we know, unfortunately. So what would you say to our listeners out there who are in like very male dominated or monolithic kind of industry that's kind of a lot of the same type of person? Or maybe they're at a certain type of level in their career, which we often get to as women, kind of that C-suite senior management level where there's not a lot of women or, you know, people who look like us. What is one approachable way to meet people outside of your comfort zone? It's hard. If you can't see it, it's hard to know that you can be it, right? Whereas I think that's what you were kind of getting at. But maybe it's not in your workplace. Maybe it's somewhere else. Do you have any kind of strategies or tips for that?
Yes, I have a couple strategies for that. One, and I always start with that first, is really understanding yourself. What's unique about you? Like, are you extroverted? Are you introverted? What energizes you? What kind of people do you think energizes you? You know, sometimes you work with one group of people, and why are you drawn to them? Could that same kind of energy be elsewhere in another industry? So it's a lot about understanding who you are as a person, and then realizing that really and truly you can take that value and bring it somewhere else into a new space and gain friendship and comfort there as well. So it really starts with yourself first. I always say do your homework, and doing your homework involves working on yourself, because if you are strong as a person and you really understand you and what energizes you, then you know, you say, okay, yes, that's me, and then you go from there. So that's the first step. You can't make those connections without understanding you. Then the second step is, how do you connect to like-minded individuals who may be in another industry, they may be in another geographical location, and how do you build those? The other step is also, so the second step I would say is then doing some research, right? Whether it's on social media, you know, looking at people, seeing, you know, getting a sense of that industry, getting a sense of what's out there, who's out there, right? So that's the second point, doing your research. And then the third one is to tapping into your existing network, but with new eyes. Because sometimes you have your existing network, but you have not fully maximized those relationships. Because if you think about the person you're trying to meet or somewhere outside of your industry might be just 2 or 3 persons away from a current connection. But you haven't looked at it in that lens, right? So if you really start to evaluate who you already know, you could realize that, okay, it's not really that hard step to reach into another space by leveraging those connections and asking simply like, do you know anybody else who is creative? And someone says, oh, you know, actually I know that artist. I know that person. I was like, okay, well, can you make an introduction? But it's really intentionally looking at your network and seeing it almost in a new lens, see it in a new way.
Yeah. The like seeing your network with new eyes is so important. I even feel that with myself. Someone knows me from either RaiseHER, or they know me from my day job or whatever it is. And then they say something and I'm like, oh yeah, like I've done something like that in the past, or I know this person, and then it's like a switch flips and they realize, okay, actually I can get more out of you.
Yes.
And especially if you're, if you're willing to give and be there as well. Yeah. I love that.
And especially in Canada, one of the things I love, you find people with so much diverse backgrounds.
Yeah.
So from all my authentic conversations, that's what I've realized, people with diverse backgrounds. So like you're talking to somebody and you're talking about tech, and in the middle of it, they say like, you know, I used to be what and what. I was like, okay, I'm so, so it's, which I find is just so fascinating.
Yeah, we got to keep ourselves busy in the cold winters.
100%.
Yeah. So speaking of kind of that, like tapping into your network and leaning on people, that really lends us to then kind of the idea of mentorship. And with mentorship, also sponsorship, but specifically mentorship can really feel like a lot of emotional labor, like a lot of work for the person who also kind of serves as like the mentor role instead of the mentee, especially when you're from an equity deserving group. And so how do you build those mentorship relationships that feel really mutual and also sustainable without dumping or draining on anyone?
Yes, that's true. Mentorship, I love mentorship. So this year specifically, this has been a very extraordinary year for me. So this year, I had the opportunity to mentor 6 women.
Wow.
Right. So 6 women in all, one through the Women in Leadership Foundation, which is Canada across. So they do matching. I signed up for the mentorship as a mentor because I wanted to see if there was any other women in STEM who are also in male dominated fields who would benefit from mentorship from my experience. So that was one mentorship that I did. And then at work, where I work, there was also a mentorship program, and I got matched to 5 women. So I had a circle of 5 women who I was also mentoring for the year. So this year has been extremely beneficial to that. So yes, I'm very happy. In the mentorship itself, what I have found is one thing is really to create that safe space for sharing. That's like fundamental. Mentees need to feel safe to share. So in order to do that, I share a lot of my own experiences and really become vulnerable. So I share my own experiences with anxiety, with imposter syndrome, with becoming a manager for the first time. I had a lot of anxiety, imposter syndrome, negative thinking. So sharing lots of that. And then that created that safe space so they too could also open up. And then I also created structure. So we had like meetings once a month, check in with a text or through meetings. We would check in and go through that structure. And the final thing I invited them to do is actually to paint with me.
Love
So
that.
that's one of the things that we did. So I had my group of 5 at work, and we actually had a paint with me session. So I did a session about the power of growth and transformation. So we painted bottles. So I like bottles because bottles, it starts out like neutral. It's like a clean bottle, but then you have the power within it to transform it. And through that transformation process, we paint something that then represents your growth. So it was really, really powerful. They enjoyed it, creative expression. And then with my other one who was virtual mentorship, I sent her a painting kit and invited her to do the same. Yes.
I love that. And you have such a rich background, being like from the science and data and left brain. I don't know what brain that is. And also being
Whole
so
brain.
creative. Like you can really get along with anyone, it sounds like, in terms of like interests, because you got both.
Yes. So that really added to the experience because it wasn't just about talking and stuff, but actually practically doing things that really help you to grow and exploring more about themselves and discovering hidden talents.
Totally.
Right. And I was just reading something on like educating kids and like breaking out of, when it's with the littles around. And when you give someone something physical to do with their hands, when you're having even a tough conversation or just any conversation, but if they can do painting or beading or anything, so they're just so much more willing to open up because the attention is not on like looking at someone in the eyes. It's about like kind of releasing that anxiety and doing something with your hands. So I know that they do a lot of that with even like healing for Indigenous groups and that sort of thing when they're doing beading and ribbon skirt making. So really amazing that you also, maybe I don't really know what the conversations were that you were having, but that you took that part of it as well. And and allowed people to kind of get their walls down.
Have you ever been have you ever sought a mentor?
I've sought some coaching.
Okay.
Yes. So previously I had done a career coach because I was at the point in my career where I was thinking about pivoting. So I worked with a career coach to look at my strengths, areas of improvement, and we did all those assessments. So yes, so I've done career coaching
Okay.
for my own personal investment to kind of know like what I wanted to do with all of my skill sets.
And that's a good say. Like, I have two questions, but around that topic, a lot of people find a hard time finding a mentor who can do all, like, answer all the questions and even give them the time specifically that they're looking for. And depends on why you're looking for a mentor, right? So, career coaching is a huge, or executive coaching, or whatever it is that you're specifically looking. But that's a thing that I feel like I don't really think about. It's just like, I feel like I'm not an executive lab, so I'm not ready for like executive coaching. But I always am like, I need a mentor. So I'm like, it's another way to think of it. But when it comes to just going back to the mentorship question, you've mentored a lot of folks. When you've been in those relationships, have you ever felt it being a little transactional, or like, they're just here for you to like pick your brain and you're not really getting anything, and how do you kind of mitigate that and ensure it's like a genuine relationship? Or maybe if you're not feeling a connection with a mentor, how do you navigate that?
That's a good question. Again, I think it comes down to being authentic and those authentic connections. Like I always say, when I step into the human world, and the human connection is very important to me because I work with computer, and computer and data is all transactional. So when I focus on people and really work on like mentorship, and so it's really about valuing that human connection. So I really try to make it authentic as possible by, again, being curious, and then also trying to make it, for me, I remember things well. So I always follow up, because whatever you say, I follow up just to show you again that I am interested in your journey, right? So whatever you shared, if you said you were going to work on something, or like, how did you get to do that thing? I was like, oh, they tried. So just really trying to be really authentic about connecting with them and really supporting that person in their journey. So I give it my all for that purpose. Not that it's emotionally burdensome. I think the burden is reduced because I invite people to share. So if we're in a circle with sharing, we have the opportunity to gain empathy and then to reduce the burden on one specific person to carry that weight, right? So
Nice.
circles do work.
Okay.
It's like that intergenerational, that like multi-group.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share a moment, and maybe it was unexpected, where a friend or like a friendship or a mentorship relationship with someone from a different culture or a background or kind of a viewpoint opened a door or shifted your perspective? So going back to that kind of the diversity of it all and where that came in.
And it will be shifting my perspective about anything.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe your relationship was about or around work, and maybe they kind of shifted your perspective in something in that way. Maybe it was in the community, and that you were talking or you were at an event, and they shifted your perspective. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. So I have two very interesting ones. So one is I met Nancy. So she's one of our ambassadors, long-standing member of the Regina Women's Network. So I met her. She invited me to coffee. So it was at the time when I said I was just working primarily in male-dominated teams, and I was just thinking about maybe trying to connect more with women. And then I ran into Nancy. I think I went to one event and she was like, oh, Credell, let's go for coffee. And I was like, yeah, no. And then we went for coffee and then we talked about, all the things, great things about, women and the diverse experiences that these women in that community bring. So then I was like, okay, let me try going to another event. So I did go to a couple more events and then started to get more comfortable with them. And it really changed my perspective about women in general. And in terms of like, I met so many women over the past 2 years. And to me, that was very important, making those connections with women and feeling a sense of belonging in that group. Even though I'm different, I feel that there is a sense of belonging there. So that one really shifted my perspective, which women will really connect with me. Like I really thought like, well, what kind of women? Will it just be younger women? Turns out not. There's a lot of women over 50. That's something about my energy. They're like, I don't know, but they're just like soak it all in. We have a lot of fun laughs and we talk about their children or their grandchildren. I'm like, okay, so, and they're younger women who we talk about different things, but I feel, okay, yes, we're connected, so that just shifted my perspective on women in general, because again, for most of my life, my relationship was really focused around my bonds with my twin sister. So that was fundamental. And my bond with my mother. And then when those dynamics change, it was about then, looking beyond that and saying, okay, which woman can I connect to? So that was one specific one. And then the other one was, as I mentioned, my friend Carrie, she's an executive coach. And she really, that statement about how you show up in the world, that one stuck with me. And then I was able to connect it to painting. And I said, like, to make a bold statement, am I like the canvas? Am I the paint? And I was like, maybe you're the paint. That's why women are attracted to you. Maybe I'm like paint. I don't know, and then really starting to see it's really about that boldness. So, and then I try to bring that out, not only in my personality, but in my art. I do very vibrant art, very contemporary art. So I think it really showcases my personality. And it was all what she said, that perspective about how do you show up in the world.
I love that. I love that focus on, am I the canvas or am I the paint? Because even that, I'm like, oh, yeah.
That's what a deep question. And I think you are the paint, like a very colorful
too,
for sure. So you do a lot. You have like a whole art side and like a business there. You have a full-time job, and then you're a mentor. You're involved in all kinds of different groups and Regina Women's Network. So for those of us out there, for the listeners who are worried about stretching themselves too thin, how much work is it going to be? How much time should I be like allotting in my calendar for committing to mentorship or a mentee? What would you say about that? And like, how do you know when you're ready for mentoring 6 people?
Yes. So you could potentially burn out on the networking piece.
Yeah. Networking is a whole other thing.
A whole other thing. But fundamentally, how do you know when you are ready? One, going back to doing your work on yourself. So understanding yourself fully, knowing what you like, what energizes you. Because if you realize what energizes you, then you might come to the conclusion that you need networking, because you say, okay, I'm really energized by people. Something about people gives me energy. It fills my cup. So because you want your cup full, you realize that, okay, yes, I definitely need to do some more networking. Then you go about thinking about, okay, how much can I actually do? And you look at your calendar and then you start into your boundary setting. Can I set aside 1 hour per week? Maybe that's too much. Maybe 1 hour a month, so then you start to look to see, what do I actually have space for? What makes sense in terms of space to do that networking, and then starting to look at where you want to network. Do you actually want to put your foot out there in person? There are a lot of virtual online ones, which are just quick, but you may decide that you actually want to go out in person, and what does that look like? So, and then planning that out so that you don't feel overwhelmed, and then knowing that you can always say no. You could always pull back if you think you've gone cross your boundary that you set, that you always pull back and say, okay, it's too much right now. Or you may land at a group that you're comfortable with and realize your cup is full right now. Yes, you don't need. And then, I've heard that they say women change friends every 7 years.
Really?
That's what I heard. So every 7 years, because women look for new women to connect with. Yes.
Unless you get, married through a business and then you're stuck with each other.
But generally, they say like your circle of friends change every 7 years.
Don't you isn't it biologically your cells entirely regenerate? Like you're an entirely new person every 7 years?
7 years there's something about that 7 years.
7-year
And I
itch.
mean, if you think about so much can happen in 7 years, like
Yeah.
completely different life stage in 7 years.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Speaking of like kind of different life stages and that, regeneration, where people maybe feel stuck or they are somewhere where there isn't a lot of diversity. So potentially in, smaller centers, towns, even, or are really, really isolated because of their job, because they work from home and it's a very different industry or whatever it may be. How do you begin forging a connection where there really isn't an obvious in? Like maybe someone is like, I'm terrified of networking and there is absolutely no way. But how do you start to forge that connection that feels still authentic to you?
It could be really hard. I'm from a small island, so being a small island girl, networking could be challenging. It really relies on you putting yourself out there in person, going to, I would say, make use of free spaces. So in Grenada, you go to the beach and believe you could meet somebody at the beach or at the one of those open parks. So I always say make use of those. I'm a nature lover, so usually in nature you find people who are actually also in nature, and then you connect that way. So that's from small island. In niche industries can be challenging too because it's just a small group of people. Then I mean, right now, fortunately, we do have social media. It's always come down to how you use it and how do you maximize social media to find people who may be in a similar niche, maybe in a different country, but in a similar niche. So I would say spend some time, not too much time, but start with LinkedIn. Everywhere else is kind of takes in your time, but the LinkedIn is always a good one to start to find people in that niche. And then if you work from home, like my sister, she worked from home like for a long time post COVID, and there was like little or no networking. So that's just the downside. You have to be intentional to be out there and actually maximizing the time to being intentional, being purposeful, and also knowing that what's your goal at the end. And if you're really committed to your goal, you'll make it happen.
A lot of people don't like networking, including myself. I find it very awkward for me and for the other person. Maybe I don't know the questions to ask. I don't know how to start the conversation, and I'm not an extrovert. So that's also part of it. But I like to I like these one-on-one, like deep conversations. So for those that do have that feeling of like, I don't like networking, which a lot of people don't, what would you say helps get over that hurdle? Or what would you suggest as an alternative?
Okay. Networking can be, yes, there's lots of anxiety that comes with it. I would say I was an introvert for a long time because I work with computers. So introvert, I didn't really need to network. So getting over it, it was a lot of self-talk. I say do the self-talk. People don't believe in it, but I believe self-talk. So you talk about it. I'm just saying what I work for myself.
Yeah.
So self-talk. Then I also spend a lot of time, don't overthink it. Don't overthink it, because overthinking, then you're thinking about what could go wrong. I would say daydream about it, but always do it like a fairy tale that it will work out in the end. So you have that conversation in your mind before, but you think about it like a fairy tale. You're going to connect, you're going to have a great time, and you're actually using affirmations to kind of pump yourself up for it, pump up your energy for it and say, okay, it will go well. Don't overthink it, because overthinking is what causes you to say, this is not going to go good, So, and then also I usually advise start with an easy target. And then you have to say, well, what's an easy target? Is there somebody? Sometimes, people always think networking is like you have to go way out there the first time. Easy target. A lot of people work with people on their flow and they have never stopped by to say hi in your cube. That's an easy target. It's an easy target. You walk on a flow, there's like 50 people on the flow. You pick one.
Yeah.
You pick one and you go off and say, hello. And then you start that conversation. Sometimes there are easy targets around us that we just haven't looked at in that way because we spent a lot of time with our heads done. I did it for a long time. My head was down just doing my work. And when you look up and you really connect with where you are and the space are you in, then you realize, oh, I can actually get to network with somebody and you start with an easy target like, hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
even networking gets like such a, I also am not a fan
Mhm.
of networking in the, like the traditional sense of networking,
Right.
but really it's friendship making. And
Okay.
it's finding people that you can, I think networking, there's always this like idea of it's going to be transactional. Like you're getting something at the end. I'm going to give you my business card. I'll take your business card. Yes. And then we will become friends and we will do business. But it's really just like let's find some common things that
Some
we can
common things,
chat about, and
chat
then
about it, yes.
so
Common interests. I mean, you have to be willing to be vulnerable, but with whatever you're comfortable with. So you have to kind of decide, what am I comfortable sharing?
mhm.
And then be somewhat vulnerable, be curious.
Yeah.
You need to curious, like, like, how was your summer? What did you do? And then listen. Then you listen, and then you try to make that connection. Okay, you went over there, I went here,
Yeah.
and it's like, and then you finally found out that, okay, your children are like the same age, or you find out that the person also had a twin. I did meet somebody for coffee, and during the coffee was like, I'm a twin as well. I was like, oh my God, I'm a twin too. And it's like, like, where you saw that coming. And then it was just like so meaningful, but at a different level.
Yeah.
So it's,
make some friends. Make some friends along the way. So we always like to give people kind of like things to do, the so what at the end of every episode. So with you though, we wanted you to do that work for us because that is what you're doing here anyways. So we wanted to know maybe one or two kind of simple, like try this today things that people can do to gently expand their circles. So, and maybe, just friendship making, or maybe it's, but expanding their circles in a way that will, make them more diverse, whether that's in thought or culture or whatever that may be. And yeah, so what are like one or two ways that you would kind of share that people can do that?
One, try stepping out of your comfort zone. By the first step is writing down something about yourself that makes you unique. And that is something that, in your first conversation, you're going to share. Right? So looking at yourself and say, what makes me unique? Am I a fun girl? Am I a interesting guy? What makes me interesting? I really give funny jokes. So you write that down about yourself, and then you say, okay, where would I get my energy from? And you say, okay, I get my energy from, people are also very weird, very like, curious as well.
Right.
And then you say, okay, where do I start to find these people? And then asking around in your circle, thinking through what your circle in terms of who you already know that maybe actually thinking about it, that person is also kind of creative, and then making those connections, and then one connection could lead to another connection. Again, stepping out of your comfort zone with yourself as well, because sometimes you're too comfortable with yourself. Even haven't asked yourself the hard question, what makes me unique? What makes me unique? Ask yourself that, and then start to dive into where do I get my energy, and who would I like to connect with?
I love all the deep work. It's kind of like, why do you want more friends? Why do you want to mentor in the first place? Figuring that out to then know what your outcome is, or what's driving you. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, my work just told me I have to, or I have to be part of this group. And it's like, then it becomes a chore. Whereas if you really do the work to determine the why, it's different. It's awesome.
Those are great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing.
I just love when we have friends join us on this podcast. I always get the most from their like lived experiences and their true, authentic, ways of going through life, things that have worked and not worked. And yeah, I think it was so good. That was so real and rich.
And I love the deep homework, like for yourself, like understanding what it is that you're really looking for and what you bring to the table and all of that too. Because it's a two-way thing, right? These relationships.
Definitely.
But it's also those everyday moments, like not making so much pressure on yourself about having like a deep, intense chat and have 15 questions prepared. Like It could be a walk or talk and a
Yeah.
coffee, and
just go say hello to that person in the
and
cubicle.
just find a common ground.
Yeah. And yes, we know that diversity fatigue is real. It is something that I think is on a lot of people's radars, and making sure that we do have this very rich and full society and that our lives are rich and full. Credell's gentle guidance really reminds us that it doesn't have to be heavy. It doesn't have to be a lot of work. It just has to be intentional.
Totally.
So with that, thank you for joining us today as we confronted some terrifying but very real life statistics impacting women and girls. Please share this episode, rate and subscribe wherever you are listening, and stay tuned for more ways to make a positive impact, because together we can make the world a little less scary for women and girls.
Follow us on Instagram at RaiseHERCo and at scaries.podcast, and on TikTok at RaiseHERCo. And remember that change starts with awareness and action. Thank you for being part of the Scaries community and making this world a little less scary to exist as a woman.
Bye.